Hey, it's Sheila from To Love, Honor, and Vacuum, and we're here with another edition of Ask Sheila, where I take some of your reader questions that came in and I try to take a stab at answering them. And today's is a fun one. It's from a woman who says that her husband doesn't want to get very adventurous in bed. So let me read you what she has to say. All right. I grew up in a church where we never spoke about sex, and I grew up thinking that this is something that you have to do to please your husband. I think a lot of women grow up like that. After we got married, we read a book and we learned that it is something that God created to be a pleasure for both of us. And so it is. But my husband doesn't want to get adventurous. He always wants to do the same two positions and I don't know what to do. I'm bored of them. He doesn't want oral sex because he says that it's gross, like her doing it for him is gross. I'm thinking that this is because before we were married, he used to watch porn and now he's ashamed. He did counseling for that and he is a free man, but how can I convince him to do more things in bed, to have fun, and to try something else? Great question. So let's take a stab at answering this. You know, this is something that I get a lot. Like I get a lot of people saying to me, you know, Sheila, why are you focusing so much on steamy sex when we should be focusing on intimacy and love? And I think it's interesting that we see those things as diametrically opposed. Like hot and holy cannot go together, or, you know, when you really love each other, it should actually be more boring sex because that's all you should need. And the people who need the hot stuff are the people who don't really know or love each other. But that's actually not the way that God made us. In fact, what I found in my studies for the Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex is that the couples that felt closer, even closer spiritually, were the couples that tended to also get more adventurous, to be more sexually responsive, and all of that stuff. And hot and holy are not polar opposites at all, because if you think about it, what hot means essentially is when we're completely given over to passion. Like when you almost lose yourself, when you get really carried away, that's actually what an orgasm is. And that's kind of what God is like too. Like he wants us to become completely carried away with him. And I think that he made sex to kind of mirror how we also were supposed to feel about God. Like there's that idea of losing control, of getting completely and utterly into things. And so I don't think that hot and holy are opposites whatsoever. I think too much when we do, you know, the same thing over and over again, and it can get kind of bland. We're almost trying to stay in control, and we're trying to keep it in very narrow boundaries so that nothing unexpected could happen, or nothing where we would lose control. And that's actually the opposite of the way that God designed sex to work perfectly. So I don't think hot and holy are exclusive whatsoever. But what do you do if your spouse doesn't see it that way? I do think that what she said about his porn use, she might be right on with that, because people who grew up with porn and who grew up thinking about certain things as being sort of anonymous, they're hot because they're anonymous. It's hard to bring those things into the bed when you're with someone that you truly do love and cherish. And so there are periods where you have to rebuild that, and you have to rebuild the idea of intimacy. And that could be an ongoing thing, and it certainly needs to be an ongoing conversation where they need to know, you know what, I completely accept you, I completely love you, this is all good. And he also needs to be able to go there without picturing porn. And for a lot of guys, that might take a while. And so you need to give him freedom in that, you know, talk to him about that. Hopefully he has an accountability partner or a counselor that he can talk to about that. But for many guys, you know, recreating things that they did see in porn, even if it's something that for you is relatively mainstream, like it's just another position that's okay, you know, or oral sex or something. For him, it might be, if I go there, I'm afraid I'll start fantasizing or something, and I don't want to bring that into my bed. So he may be trying to protect you. And if that's the case, just encourage his heart there. And again, if that's the case, just a few tips for you. You know, you can make those positions more fun just by you being the aggressor. You know, you be the one to decide how things go. You be the one to initiate. You do more of the moving than him. There are ways that you can get things a little bit more fun, because I think the problem with making love the same way all the time is that it is harder to lose control and get into it, because you almost always know what's about to happen. And so I guess that, yeah, that's one reason why a lot of us do want to get more adventurous and try more things. Again, not really weird things, okay? But trying a new position, trying oral sex, those are totally okay if that's what you want. Here's a couple of other ideas. I had a post on my blog about having his nights and her nights. I think that can work really well in a situation like this. If you look at a calendar, chances are there's 4 weekends in a month. Take 2 of them and make them his nights, and take 2 of them and make them her nights. You know, 2 Saturdays are his, 2 Saturdays are hers, and on her nights you do what she wants, and on his nights you do what he wants, and then the rest of the month you do whatever you both want together. And if you explain it that way and say, you know, this is something that I want to do, and it would really honor me if you would do that, and ask for it as a, you love me, so this is a way to make me happy. He may be more willing to do it than if you sort of suggest it as a, you know, I think that you should want to do this, or why don't you want to do this? So asking for it for yourself might help in that way too. Another thing is that people often have a hard time initiating something different, or if you initiate it, they're going to feel a little bit weird. But if there's a third party, it's different. I'm not talking about a third party in the bed. I'm talking about like my book 31 Days to Great Sex, for instance. There's a couple of days which take you through, you know, working on different positions, or doing something new. And if you're reading the words on a page, it seems less vulnerable than coming up with it yourself. And so that's a way sometimes you can get over that hurdle. Another great one, and I absolutely love this, is the Ultimate Intimacy app, which you can use on your phone. Seriously, if I were to create an app, this is the app I would have created. It's an app that comes on your phone, and there's all kinds of different parts of this. I love the game. So if you hit play the game, you can set it so that you can either have like romance, foreplay, heavy foreplay, hot and heavy. You can turn those things off or on, and how many minutes you want each session to be. And then when you hit play, it gives you a prompt of what to do for romance. And then when you're done that, you move on to foreplay, and then you get into heavy foreplay and hot and heavy, and each one it'll tell you what to do. And sometimes that's just easier. Like if a spouse is just really uncomfortable with some things, then hey, you can, if it's a phone telling you to do it, it's not quite the same thing. And again, you can also, there's settings for it, so you can turn off certain settings. If you don't want oral sex or something like that, you can turn off that setting and it won't even tell you to do it. I want to show you a few other things in the app that are kind of cool. There's conversation starters. So if you just simply want to get to know each other more, you know, seriously, the key to desire is emotional vulnerability. When you feel like you really know each other, you're actually going to want each other more in bed. So that's always a good idea to, you know, to start those conversations and to have just to learn more about each other. But that's not all. There's also, this one's really fun. There's a whole encyclopedia of positions in the different groups. So there's wife on top, husband on top. There are, you know, rear entry, all kinds of different things. And you can dare yourself to try different positions. Those are really cool. You could do like each one for 2 minutes, or just try like, you know, 3 positions a night or something that you haven't done. But what's also cool with the positions is you can hit this little search bar here, and it gives you all these different things that you can set it by. So if, for instance, you're pregnant, you can hit the pregnant one, and you can set it for those sorts of things, or all kinds of stuff. You can set it for who's being the aggressor, like who's in control. You can set that. And then it'll show you different positions that you can try from that. So, you know, that's also really fun. And they also have lots and lots of resources. So they have resources for learning about sex, so just for learning the different anatomy for men and women. They have resources for feeling closer. They have resources for technique, including, you know, how to reach orgasm, oral sex, all kinds of stuff like that. And what's really neat too is that all of these resources, they're totally marriage friendly. Okay, we're not talking, there's nothing weird about it. There's no sex toys, there's no anything like that. It's just how you can have fun together, how you can increase passion, and there's so many ideas for date nights, conversation starters, romantic ideas, romantic getaways, that it also works on just helping you guys feel closer, which is going to help your relationship as well. It's just a super fun app. It's the one that I would have come up with too, and you know, sometimes when it's someone else telling you to do something, then it just becomes a lot easier. But that's what I would try. You know, have that conversation with him. Talk to him about how hot and holy do not have to be polar opposites. I will put a link in the description box in the YouTube video and further down in the post where you can find that article that I wrote on hot and holy. You know, talk to him about having his and her nights, and maybe you just need to step out of the box a little bit and try like one of these apps, which are very marriage affirming. They do not make you do anything gross whatsoever, but they can just help you turn the heat up a little bit more and help get that passion going again, because God did make us to be passionate, and He did make sex to carry us along and to feel a little bit out of control, and that's all a good thing. So there's nothing wrong with that. So I wish you all the best, and I hope that that helps. So thanks for joining me for this edition of Ask Sheila. I'm glad that I'm a safe place for you to ask sex questions, although there are parts of me that still feels like this is a really weird job that I have. But fire more questions my way. Leave some comments and maybe we'll keep the discussion going. And why don't you answer this question? How do you handle a spouse who isn't as adventurous as you would like them to be? Let's talk about it. And I look forward to seeing you again next Monday for another edition of Ask Sheila. Bye-bye.